I'm Pastor Jake. We're in Mark chapter 14, verses 42 through 52 for our Bible study. And Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's been praying. The disciples are sleeping. He finally tells them, get up because I'm being betrayed. And here comes Judas with a bunch of guards from the temple. Now, Judas had a sign when he came up to him, was to kiss him on the cheek. That was called a welcome kiss. That was culture back then. And straight away, as soon as he did, they grabbed Jesus. Now, one of the disciples, it said, cut off the man's ear, which we later on find in another gospel that it was Peter. You know, Peter's always doing something wild. And Jesus winds up attaching the ear back and healing the guy. But Jesus tells him, he says, you know, y'all come against me like I'm a thief. I was in the temple preaching and doing stuff, and you did none of this. You know, and this kind of goes back to the devil's way. He's always doing stuff in the darkness. You know, trying to do that scheming where nobody finds out the truth. And that's how, usually most time, that's how the devil works. We see this in a lot of stuff he's done. In my life, I've seen him try to go around the back way of doing things. But the thing about it is, God always throws light on it. But in this, and I always wonder too, because, you know, when he's coming into the Jerusalem, he's riding a donkey, and everybody's praising him and stuff. Well, that's why. It's because the people, if he took them in the temple, the people would have revolted. It would have been a bad situation. What it is, the devil want to do things behind the scene where nobody was paying attention. And like I said, Jesus says, yeah, you know, it's got to happen anyways because the scripture had to be fulfilled. Same as in Daniel, same as in Isaiah. They had already talked about what was going to happen. That Jesus had to give up his life for our sins. You know, the one thing one of the little deals was that one of the guys he was just wearing a loincloth, and he was a young guy. He took off running, and they tried to grab him, and wound up, he run around way naked. That, I don't know why that's in there. One of these days we're in heaven, I'm going to ask that question. But the next thing that gets me is, all the disciples fled. You know, they'd all said, we'll die for you, we'll die for you. We're going to be right there for you, Jesus. We're going to be right there for you, Jesus. And they all fled. But I've looked at my life and times when, you know, I started out being a Christian and stuff, and how many times I've fled. How many times I've denied Jesus, you know. And that's the one thing we got to look back now is, are we going to deny Jesus? Are we going to flee? Or are we going to stand our ground?